Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Today we have to discuss language and society. That what is the relationship between language and society, how language plays a role in a society, and what is the role of society in a language. So these are two factors which are dependent on each other. Language is dependent on society, and society is dependent on language. Why? Because a single factor can change and can bring a lot of variation in language. So the role of society is very important in language, and language plays a role of tool. So we say that what is language? If someone asks that what is language, so we say that language is a tool of identity. How we can say that it is a tool of identity? So the way we speak, the way we react, the way we write, so it can identify the social group of us. That it can identify the culture, identity, gender, each and everything can, like, that language can differentiate the difference between male and female. So why? Because the way we speak, the way we write, it can tell us that what is the gender of a person. So language is a tool of identity, and language gives identity to society and people. And there are a lot of variability in society because of language. So it is language that we see a lot of variation in language. So it is the role of society, and we have different identity in a single society, we are firstly that gender, education, age, as a family role, as a family identity, like a brother and so on. So there are a lot of factors which can differentiate identity in a single community, in a culture, in a society. So whatsoever we speak, alright, it is a requirement of society. So what society society demands, that what we speak and what we write, so it is the demand of society. So we used to speak and write. So in short, both language and society has a deep relation, and it is dependent on each other. As I told you in start, that language is dependent on society, and society is dependent on language. So when we say that the relation of language with society, or the relation of society with language, so simply we call it sociolinguistics. What is sociolinguistics? So it is the study that the connection between language and society, that how people use language in different social situation. So simply we say that it is the study of all aspect of variation. So what kind of thing bring variation in a language? So there are a lot of factors like social, cultural norms, race, ethnicity, geography, gender, socio-political, economic history, status, power, religion, education, age, gender. So all these things bring variation in our language. So that's why when we study the language with relation with society, so this is known as sociolinguistics. Language changes according to situation, according to context, and different contexts we play different role, and we present different identity in our society, in our social, in our religious, in our ethical context. So we play, we speak, we write language according to the context. So you can say that it depends on the audience, the listener, or the person who is the receiver of our communication or language. So the relation between language and society is simply known as sociolinguistic. So language is a part of society, and In social context, we try to describe and account for the different way that different people use language differently. So a social context looks at a relationship between language and society and looks at language as a people use it. So it considers the relationship between person's language and their social identity. As I told in start that the using of language, the presenting of language gives social identity, and we are being identified because of the use of our language, that how we present language is spoken or written, so we are being known because of language. So in short that we use language in many different ways depending on the situation they are in. So the sort of language that we use also depends on their social background and social identity. Like my social identity as a teacher, as a brother, so so a lot of things that are existed in a society that bring difference in presenting of a language. So when we do study of that thing, that how we speak a language in different situation, that is the study of sociolinguistics. So what is the relationship between language and people, that how people use language and how they present their identities in different situation. So there are four possibilities. The first one is language influence society and people. How language, as I told you that we are being identified because of language, so we have a different identity in our society, in a group of people, so because of language. So it is the first thing that language influences society and people. The second thing, people and society influence language. So every person, so as I told you in the start that the society has effect on the language as well, that we have different variation like social variation, religious variation, gender variation. So that's why people present language, they speak language, they write language according to their social norms, social values and culture variation. So the third one, there is interaction as language influences people and society, and people and society influence language. So definitely people and society are dependent on each other. In a single society there are two factors. People live with a language and they present a language, they speak a language, and when they speak a language, so it tells about a society. So when we talk about a society, so it affects a language. So like you observe that in this single community, in Pashtun community, we use in our society we use different languages. So that's why, because of our geographical, social, political, so these factors make people different and they live in society. That's why people are different, so they speak differently, and it is the factor that which bring variation in a language, and that's why we say that people and society influence language. So the fourth one is there is no influence of either, so language is just a tool used by people and there is no social effect. What is identity? So identity, as it has been written, that how a person understands his or her relationship to the world. So identity is given to us by a society, that the way we speak, the way we react, so it is totally the reaction of a society, that we are being known as we are given identity by a society. So we have different identity in a society. In a single society we have a lot of identities, like we have gender identities, social identities, cultural identities, and all these identities are being differentiated by a different thing, like our education, or social environment, or family, or friends, or education, or age. So a lot of things brings identities in a single societies. Language and society. Socio-linguistic, the study of relation between language and society. In socio-linguistic, language study the interaction between linguistic and social variable. So linguistics and social variable are known that how we speak different vocabulary, different words and different situation. So this is because of society. How language is used in various setting and situation. So one of the areas in socio-linguistic that language study is the variation in language. So this is this is a one area in socio-linguistic that what kind of variation is brought by language in a society and how society brings variation in language. So these are as a man, as a woman. So our gender can differentiate it can bring the variation in our language. So if I speak, so the way I speak, the way I present the word, so it is said that this is the variation of being a man. So I am the use of different language, different vocabulary from other person which is known as a female. So that's why that negation the one identity and it gives to identity another person. Relation between language and society. So language and society are complementary to each other, so they are dependent on each other. So if there is a society, there is a language. If there is a language, there is a society. Every society has a different language and every language has a society. So society walks according to language and language is according to society. So the use of power in a society is being imposed on these people, and who given the power to a person, to a group of people. So it is because of language, as you have been studied this discussion in language and ideology. So this is the role of language, that some kind of people use different kind of language, like who have the power to persuade, to influence the people, the group of people are people. So in according to our society, religious language can persuade easily or influence people easily. So those people who have religious language, who have Islamic language, who have Islamic ideology, so they can persuade, they can influence people easily. Why? Because they have power. Who has given power to that group of people? So it is language. So the role of language is very important in a society. So language affects society and society affect language, and both of these are dependent on each other.